Great, thanks Savannah for that text. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Tucson Pima County Historical Commission Plans Review Subcommittee meeting of Thursday, May 11th, 2023, called to order at 1:01 p.m. And I'll go ahead and call roll. Terry Majewski is here. Savannah McDonald.
Aye, or present,
Joel,
sorry.
That's okay. Joel Ireland. You're here.
Present.
And Carol Griffith.
Present.
And not present, Jan Mulder. Okay, item 2 is approval of legal action report / minutes for the meeting of April 27, 2023. Could I have a motion to approve as submitted, please?
I move
I will,
approval of the legal action report minutes for the meeting of April 27, 2023 as submitted.
Great, and a second?
I'll second.
There you
Thank you. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Okay, if not, I'll call roll. I vote aye. Savannah,
Aye.
Joel,
go. Yes.
Carol.
Aye.
Okay, they pass unanimously 4-0. Move on to item 3, historic preservation zone review cases. We review these under UDC section 5.8/TSM 9-02.0.0 historic district design guidelines and revised Secretary of Interior standards and guidelines. Case 3A. Did you want to go ahead and recuse now, Savannah?
I will recuse. Thank you.
I have you at 103 and left the meeting. Okay, great. Case 3A is TP-PRE-0523-00192 at 341 West Esperanza Avenue in Ajo. It's for the rehabilitation and restoration of the existing gymnasium. It's a courtesy review for the county, and it's an individually listed, the gym is part of the individually listed Curley School, and we'll be using the rehabilitation and restoration standards. Do we have background on this case, please?
Yes, I can provide an introduction
Great, go ahead.
briefly. Okay. I'm going to share my screen.
And Scott, who else is with you for this case?
Sarah
Okay,
I'm sorry. Sarah Fontaine is with us. She's an architect with Pima County Facilities Management. He's the project manager for the county. And Corky Poster with Poster Murto McDonald is here.
okay, thank you.
I'm going to try to share my screen. Is that being
Yes.
shared?
It's fun.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. Let's see if see if I can do it full screen here. And can you still see that?
Mm-hmm.
Just okay, because I have two screens here. In any case, the team members for the rehabilitation project are Corky, of course, but then two architects that work with Corky, Charles Piper, who's homesick and couldn't make it, and Daniela Nunez, who is also out of town. And then, of course, Sarah, as I mentioned, and myself. Just some basic information. Curly Gym. I'm sorry?
It sounded like you had a little, some background, some feedback. I don't know if that was you or was it somebody else that wasn't on mute. You know, let's go ahead.
Okay. Just holler if it's an issue.
Okay,
Okay. Pima County has owned the gym since 2009. I think it was purchased with bond funds as a way of preserving a historically important building. Funding for the rehabilitation project comes from Department of the Treasury, American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funds. The purpose of the project was from the beginning to provide a functional multi-purpose building for the community of Ajo. And the design team is Poster Murto McDonald. Just in case people aren't familiar with Ajo, I wanted to show a few slides of just aerial overviews of Ajo today. Ajo, of course, is a historic mining town. The town is laid out right by the main open pit mine to the south and the huge tailings dump to the east of town. And there's a huge waste rock dump as well to the southeast of town. So everything is defined in terms of Ajo's physical character today and its history by the mine. This is the Ajo Townsite Historic District. And I'll talk a little bit, I have the dates and so on of when that was established. But you can see it takes up a good part of the central part of town. This is zooming in on Ajo, and you can see the very distinctive street layout. The town site was laid out in 1914 using the town site or city beautiful philosophy of town layouts. So a very distinctive, radiating pattern of streets, and then architecture laid out in the same grid pattern. Just to show you the major features, this is the plaza. If you can see my arrow, it's nice green area with Spanish colonial revival buildings on all sides, or three sides of it. On the northeast is the train depot, and this is the railroad that ran through town, or connected Ajo to Gila Bend historically. This is the Curley School campus right here and Curley Gym right here, and I have there's a close-up of that. Curley Gym is this building right here. This is the main high school right here. And then these were buildings that were built after the main building as auxiliary buildings to the main school. So the town site was listed as a historic district in 2001 with a period of significance 1914 to 1950. Areas of significance, community planning and development and architecture. Level of significance is national. And the buildings of the Curley School, including the gym, are all contributors to the National Register District. And then the Curley School campus, including the gym, was listed individually in the National Register in 2008. The school was built in phases beginning in 1919, so a few years after the town site was laid out, and continuing until 1951. The main school was built in 1919, and the gym was built in 37 to 40. And I will turn it over to Corky now, but I will pull up. You want to begin with the slide presentation, Corky?
Yes, I would like that. Please, Scott.
Okay,
Thank you, Scott.
let's see.
While Scott's bringing that up, I want to recognize that Linda Marrow from Pima County Conservation and Sustainability joined us and has been actively involved in the project from its inception. I'm also going to partially apologize in advance. Charles Pfeiffer, as Scott said, is very ill at home with a flu that I just spoke to him. He sounded awful. And Daniela Nunez is in Mexico City. So you're getting the third string here. And I will do my best. I know the building well. I've been supervising the project, but they know the insides and outs in a way that I can only pretend to know.
Corky, I can't seem to get it to go to full screen, but
I think it's okay if it's not full screen, but we're still looking at your old one.
okay. Let's see. And I need to try again here. How's that?
Yeah, that's perfect. So I'm going to walk through the scope of work and the renovation. Happy to answer questions. This is the Curley School looking from the entry. You can see the cupola of the Curley School main campus. Behind it, this is a gymnasium built, as Scott has said, a little bit later. And we'll see a lot of detail. We're largely taking essentially a preservation approach to the exterior and a rehabilitation approach into the interior of the building. Next slide, please. The Curley School will have multiple uses. One of the uses which indicated some of the interior remodeling will be as a very short-term way station to help in the transportation of migrants from Ajo to other locations. It's also going to be an event space for the community of Ajo and will continue to function as a gymnasium. Our approach is quite a light touch on the exterior with an interior rehabilitation. We're updating what we must in order to accommodate the program. The biggest focus is kind of in the back of house spaces with major mechanical, electrical, and plumbing upgrades. And the main space will be restored to properly function as a gymnasium. So as you'll see in a few minutes, you'll see the interior is quite a significant and imposing gymnasium space. Next. These are the drawings showing the before and after remodeling of the interior. You can see that on the bottom left, on the left side, is essentially a locker room plan that served the gymnasium and all of the multiple shower stalls and bathroom stalls serving as a locker room. The room on the bottom right, that square room, was largely a mechanical space. And the gymnasium itself is interesting characteristic. It's a full court gymnasium with built-in wooden bleachers on the left side of that drawing. You see on the right side, that will stay largely the same. We're going to remove the two bathrooms that were at the entry. We're going to restore the interior of the gymnasium and then put bathroom facilities to accommodate all the three uses of the building that we saw previously and the rest for mechanical support. There's also an outdoor basketball court that ultimately will be changed to parking to support the facility. And you can see how that works on site. Next. The exterior work is an existing ornate door frame. We're going to treat the weathered wood components and essentially update that, a preservation approach. All the windows will remain with new painted finishes on the frame elements. And we're going to be repairing existing plaster in the area where the building is cracked and texture and color to match. This building did have a renovation several years ago to repair serious structural problems at the bottom of the supporting walls for the interior trusses. So in effect, the repairs have happened this is the second phase of that, with a lot of the key structural improvements being made several years ago. Those black lines show where most of the serious cracking is occurring in the west elevation. Next. This is just a kind of a diagram that shows the parts that will be doing a very light touch, that in orange, and that light orange color, and the blue represents where we're doing more significant rehabilitation of the interior of the building on the bottom, creating offices, storage, restrooms, and then the conversion of that outdoor basketball court into a parking area. And those are all necessary to support the spaces, including major mechanical, electrical, plumbing updates. Next, please. This is the interior gym looking back toward those former locker rooms. You can see its beautiful open trusses. It's a wood frame wall on all sides, and there's a very distinctive interior paneling that you can just barely see, but it's a horizontal paneling. We're going to be updating the lighting to meet current code standards. We're going to patch and repair and repaint the horizontal wood paneling, and the existing trusses and truss structure will remain, including those kickers that are providing a better wall to roof connection. The floor is original, and I think in the next slide we'll be doing as well. Next slide, please.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see the original floor, and you can look now in the opposite direction toward the wooden bleachers, very distinctive bleachers. There's actually an occupiable or storage space underneath that. And so that will remain largely unchanged. We're going to do some patching of the floors where there are some holes, but you can see it's in quite good shape, and we will do essentially a preservation approach to the floor, just kind of bring it up to current standard. The bleachers and the platform, we'll get a new painted finish. Next, please. And this is kind of the support space on the end that was at the bottom of your drawing. Lots of pretty wacky mechanical connections and conduit running around in all directions. And we're going to clean all of that up with new, much simpler mechanical systems, better plumbing. There was a big old boiler in there that we're removing. So the support spaces will be taking advantage of the existing windows, and will be essentially recreating the backbone of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. So the bathrooms will then be upgraded. As I said earlier, it was locker rooms, so those will be essentially changed to offices, storage, and functional bathrooms. When it's used as a migrant center, it will not be long-term, so there are neither food preparations or long-term showers. It really is a short-term way station for that, and only bathrooms are bathrooms would be required. Next, please. And this shows that outdoor basketball court, and it does not get use. The plan is to have that as support parking, and it's complicated because the parking is not fully owned by Pima County, and so there's some competition for parking spaces, and the notion was that we would, on Pima County land, create dedicated parking for this facility. Next, please. And where we are now on the project, there are completed, sealed, and permitted drawings. We have all the appropriate approval. It has been bid and procured. I believe Durazo Construction has signed a contract to start very near future. It's a little tricky getting a contractor that is willing to do a project in Ajo. And we were fortunate to get quite a good contractor to proceed with the project. That's all I have. I'm happy if Sarah and Scott and perhaps Linda would be interested in adding to this. But I think it's a pretty comprehensive overview of how we're approaching the building and how we're proceeding. Sarah, anything to add?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. Just, yeah, like the restrooms being consolidated. It's the big change. Is we're going to have additional like multiple use rooms in the back and an office. And of course, providing the HVAC is just to the gym space is just going to be wonderful for the people.
Right. So, Commissioner, are we ready for any questions and comments?
I just wondered if Linda had anything she wanted to add.
Oh, sure, Linda.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'm at home
Yeah.
doing remote.
Yes, we can.
Anyway, yeah, no, we're delighted to see this go forward. The core of the funding for it is the ARPA money that was became available. Unfortunately, initially, this project was put on hold, so we didn't even know if this was going to happen because the bids came in, higher than anticipated. So we are grateful you were able to take this under review at this point in time so we can get started. Like I said, we weren't even sure this project was going to happen, but we're delighted to see it go forward and become a useful place in the community. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Linda. It's a great example of adaptive reuse of an important historic building, in sort of a rural town, right? But very important in its area. So, but you guys have been working on this for a long time. So just illustrates the dedication that it takes to get these things done over time.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have a quick question. Maybe I missed something. So there will still be the gym space for events. So there are some locker rooms for use by the people having games there and so forth.
There will only be bathrooms. There will not be, this will not be like a high school basketball game. It'll only be sort of a pickup or sort of non-regulated. And so there are not full-blown locker rooms to support it, but rather bathrooms as changing rooms.
Oh, okay. All right. I just was curious. So let's just start. Who would like to begin of commissioners? Carol, how about you? Do you have any questions? Do we lose Carol? Are you on mute?
Carol, you're on mute.
When I was at SHPO, some of this was initiated a long time ago, and I'm really happy to see it moving forward. I just have a quick question. It's going to have a temporary use. How will it change? You're going to add some showers, I guess, for that, and then remove them, or?
No, we are not adding showers. That was not-
Okay.
It is sufficiently short term that so that showers would not be required.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, thank you. That's really all I had was a question about the temporary use for migrants.
Okay, Joel?
Yeah, thanks. Excellent presentation and a great project. My only question was, Corky, you mentioned lighting, that you're going to do something with the lighting. And I'm wondering what's going to happen to the cans that are already up there, which I think are beautiful. So that's my question. When you say there's new lighting, what do you anticipate?
Okay, here's where my ignorance will be demonstrated. Sarah, can you help me out on that? Because I don't know if we're retaining those existing cans.
We are replacing them. I'll pull up the drawings and see what I can find out.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's see what I got here.
Sarah, I just saw a drawing of an example of the lighting when I was going through the plans earlier. Here, you want me to share this?
Sure. That'd be great.
I'll see if I can.
That's where I was headed.
I do not think that the lighting that's there now was original either.
Okay, so this, I can zoom in on that a little bit, I guess.
Let's see.
Is that fixtures that will go in the gym itself?
Yes.
And those are LED fixtures,
Mhm.
not fluorescent fixtures.
Right. Let's
Okay.
see what the demo plan says. Is there a wish to save something like that?
Yeah, I mean, Corky's comments illuminating. The ones that are there are not original, you say?
I seriously doubt that they're original.
Yeah, okay. Well, then that's all right. I thought they
Okay.
might be original.
Okay.
Good deal. All right, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? So I think, and maybe I missed this too, but you said, the community will be using it for functions. Are there any kitchen facilities or things like that?
No, they're not, but we are planning in that little room that you saw the conduits and the electrical
Yeah.
boxes. We're going to empty out that room. Corky's team has provided access from that room directly into the hallway to the south of the gym. And there was an idea that we'll have like some refrigerators in there, maybe places where they could have crock pots or something like that. But
Oh,
it'll
yeah.
just be just like a temporary use thing, some microwaves.
Yeah, so you could do some kind of pump thing or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah,
community
some
space.
kind of a warming kitchen in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
But not a full kitchen. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, and just one last question. Did you do any like outreach with the community on what they thought would be useful for the building, like the different uses? I'm just curious.
No, we did not. It was more of a direction that came from the administration with this idea of the migrants being the focus. And
Mhm.
so then we just made sure to incorporate things that would be useful for the community as well.
Yeah. So
I'll pop in. I'll
Go.
pop in here if I can, Terry.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, I mean, some time ago we did when we initially purchased the building. And so, they have quilt shows, they have art shows, they can rent the space for different, like, teenage dances and, that sort of thing came up. So it was very community focused. It could be a hall, it could be a place for yoga classes. I mean, so they had all these ideas. So, and again, it was years ago, but we did have that discussion. And I'm sure once it's, rehabbed and usable, the uses will come forth. And there's a parks manager in Ajo that will oversee this facility. And we just don't know how much with Title 42 ending, we don't know how many migrants are going to get dropped off in Ajo. We've had that problem before. Problem in that the people are just dropped on the street and then they just don't, there's no way to accommodate their needs. And so this is being anticipated so that it would serve multiple functions, but should we need to have it become a migrant center for a period of time, that will be its prioritized use, but that doesn't mean that's going to be always its use. So I just wanted to put that out there, but having a usable building that could serve many functions is going to really make a difference in the community.
Oh, I totally agree. One last question. Just a few minutes ago, someone mentioned sort of the functions were dictated by administration. Maybe that was you, Sarah, saying that. Was it the county administration or Ajo City administration?
Oh, county administration, they oversee that area as well.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
tied to the funding. Yeah.
Yeah, and I type up the notes for folks' review. So I wanted to be sure if I included that, but I said it was county administration.
Yeah, county, yeah.
County,
And
yes.
yeah, it's unincorporated, so there is no town government.
Right. Okay. Wow. All righty. Anyone else have any questions, or should we send them on their way with best wishes and we'd love to know when it's all finished and hear about it.
Absolutely.
And thank you for the great and thorough presentation and knowledgeable answers.
Thank you.
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. I will go ahead and
Thank-
text Vanna. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Okay, I just texted her. I'm sure she'll be right back on. And wonder if I should call her. Do you think? I'll give her a call.
There she is.
Great. Hi, Savannah. Are you joined back with us again?
I am back. Thank you.
Okay. Great project. Sorry you missed it. But you probably know about it. Okay, we'll move on to item 3B. This is TD-0423-00221/SD-0423-00042 at 130 East Congress. This is to reconstruct the storefront. It's a full review, downtown National Register Historic District. It's an individually listed building. The JCPenney Chicago store will be using rehabilitation standards. And I imagine we have Mr. Mackey with us.
Hey,
And we saw this already as a courtesy review.
correct. Couple weeks ago, couple meetings ago. So let me share the screen.
And Terry, Maria Gaiso is here also from PDSD. If you have any questions, she's able to answer too.
Okay. Is
So
that
you
because
can-
it's an IID or because it's a downtown?
Rio Nuevo.
Right.
You guys can see the screen.
Yes.
So the project's a Chicago store, and it's a facade modification to the first level storefront that's on the north side and on the very tip of the northeast corner on the east side. This building is a contributing property to the downtown multiple district, and it's also in the Rio Nuevo zone, so it's being reviewed by DRB next week. So here's the development zone, the project located here in the center at the corner of Congress and 6th. And then some pictures around it. In the upper left corner is a view of the project of the building from Ronstadt. Then here's a view from 6th and Broadway looking north. Here's a view on Congress looking to the east, the southeast, and there's the building located there. And then here's the corner of 6th and, Scott and Congress with the building further down, hidden behind the trees there. So the scope of the work is basically everything underneath this black line to the grade. And so the columns and the storefront and the base on the storefront and the entries will all be modified. And then on the east side here, this little portion right here, the storefront will be modified, as well as the tile on the columns. And so this is the existing elevation, the north elevation, and we're going to be removing this photo. The northwest corner is kind of descriptive. So we'll be removing the tile on the column, the tile at the base, the storefront, the door. We'll be keeping the tile that's on the floor, if possible, at the alcoves that are going to be created by the new storefront, but otherwise that will be removed because we're occupying that space from the inside. And then the ceiling of the alcove will be removed as well. This black piece of metal right here will stay, and there's a beam that's inside there, and that will stay. And the prismatic glass will stay. None of that is being modified. Is that clear?
Yes.
There's in the interior, you can see there's 3 columns here. And those column covers will be removed. And it's a 6-inch pipe column inside there, and we're just gonna take all that stuff off. And the window wall will actually float in front of those columns.
So they'll still remain like the exposed columns then after that exterior.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
the
know
columns
what
will
they look
stay because they're holding up that beam.
Yeah, do you know what they look like inside? If you
6-inch pipe.
Just 6-inch pipe, okay. Hmm.
And so here's what we're planning on doing is this door right now is right here, and we're gonna reshape it to be more rectangular. I think you can see right here, this is the door that's staying. And so then we're building window wall to it, and then there's 3 more alcoves created, and they're just the depth of the door swing. And so like right there, Terry, that number 5 are those columns.
I see, yes.
The spacing of these 3 doors that are new is basically based on the spacing of the prismatic glass. You can see here that, like, you see that line there,
Mhm.
and that line there. That's where there's just the prismatic glass where it's fixed. It doesn't have this kind of thing that can open up, which can't open up, but was supposed to open up. You can see the lines more defined there. And so that, so that spacing of those doors is located at each of those places where there's clear demarcation of the prismatic rhythm. And then everything else is kind of based off of that. So like in between this storefront door and this storefront door, we have 3 equal panes. And then there's a little bump out in the base of, metal work. And then 3 equal panes here. And then this one, I ended up doing the panes at the prismatic glass because this door never was at the same pattern. If you look at the facade, there's a few different vertical patterning going on, and none of them kind of line up to each other. So we made the decision to line it up with the prismatic. The detail at the base is basically, so it's going to be 2x4 extruded aluminum window frames. And then the base is going to be built out of a little pony wall that varies between 9 and 16 inches. And it will have some reveal on it with metal, kind of like at the base of Time Market or the base of the Arizona building across from Ronstadt, where we're providing some horizontal lines and some relief that work at the base. And that was it from the historic photos, like possibly that was what was happening. And then there's these little bump outs that occur in the spacing of the glazing at the very tiny base. So, this is what it's based off of. The owner has always wanted to expand the floor plate of the building. And they found this photograph. And this is probably pre-1919, but you can see the base there. And I have another slide that shows that. So, so there's that base, then with those little tiny vertical pump outs. And the drawing that you guys got, I'm really sorry it didn't come out, but here you can see closer. There's those horizontal bands and then a little tiny relief at the center point of the windows and then also at the mullions. And then this is where it was when it became J.C. Penney in 1957. And the columns kind of take a different articulation over the years in terms of texture. Sometimes they're stucco, sometimes they're brick. I think they're stucco, and here they're stucco. And they've been, that's tile. So that's the tile from the 1967. So I think the tile was added when Aronson came in. And that's when that tile floor was placed, when Aronson Brothers came in 1959. And here it's Sanborn maps showing it over time. Originally, it was just 2 bays wide. Or I can't remember how many bays. Go to the elevation. Originally, it was just these 3 bays. And see where it turns to 2 windows. That was added sometime after 1919 or wherever. I can't remember. We'll look at the map. That was after sometime between 1919 and 1947. That was added to the building. The period of significance is up to 50, or is up to 57. Between 1903 and 1957. I think that's when JCPenney's moved out. And if you guys read through this, I kind of touched on most of these during the presentation, but if there's any specifics, we can go over them. And then I included the Rio Nuevo design standards in the same document so that both committees can see what is involved. And the shade diagram is really just for Rio Nuevo. That's it.
Okay, who would like to start out with questions?
I'll go first, Terry. Thanks, Bill. I think you hit on all the things that I was concerned about. Looks good. Looks well thought out. Just a few questions. The column, I think it's actually identified on this plan you have shown as 8 and 3. What happens? I mean, you're removing the tile below, but are you moving the tile as it goes up past into the prismatic glass section or the clear story band?
We are. The tile will be removed all the way to this like frieze where it says Chicago Music Store. So it'll just be stucco just on the column. That'll be stucco. It'll be stucco up there too.
Okay.
So the entire column will be stucco.
Okay. At the corner too, is that right? Or
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. See how the tile continues up to that kind of cornice piece, trim piece, and so we'll take all that off and just make it stucco. Same goes here. It'll just come off here.
Okay. And that's per as far as we can tell from that pre-1919 photo.
I mean it
it's a little
it doesn't even, the column's not even there in the pre-1919, and then it's not really there. Well, yeah, they bring it's stucco here at this JCPenney's, so it's kind of taken on different forms over the years, and so we just get this tile off and make it just be stucco. I think would actually look better.
Yeah. Okay. And then the base is just like a folded sheet metal, like fascia or flashing.
Yeah.
Is that right? Painted. And then but the bump outs, are those a different material? Or those just more folded steel. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's painted black.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the storefront itself is it the anodized aluminum?
I think we'll just do clear anodized aluminum.
Okay. Insulated glazing?
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Savannah. Carol?
You're on mute.
I think my question was answered because I had a question about the columns as well. And so all of them will remain, they'll just be, I was a little confused, they'll all remain, but they will be stuccoed, or will some of them just be the post, the metal post?
All right, so the ones at the corners, they'll remain. They're actually, I think, I don't know their entire makeup, but they will remain at the corners. And then at this northeast corner, this little articulation will become stucco. But the 3 columns that are on the interior, those will become the pipe columns, and then they're on the inside face of the glass.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just kind of wanted to clarify that. Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. That was the only question I had.
Okay, thank you. Joel?
Yeah, thank you. That leads into my question, I think. If the 6-inch columns that are going to remain, they're now going to be inside the store, however, is that correct?
Yeah, they're the little circles by the number 5.
Okay,
And the storefront is what is to the north of those.
okay, so yeah, inside the store, and currently are they outside the store currently?
Well, they're in the alcove, so
Yeah, yeah, okay, that's what I meant, yeah. So you said in the alcove, you're removing the ceiling, is that right?
yes,
And so you're just matching that to the interior ceiling material?
yeah, it'll just be gone.
Okay, and
So like in this section,
uh-huh,
not that section, because that's just at the alcove.
yeah.
At the doors, there will be a little ceiling, but elsewhere it'll just go up to the bottom of the 2nd floor of the building.
Well, yeah, so I mean, I guess my question is that the stuff that we're removing, does it have any significance? Is it original? Is the original long gone, or?
Depends what you mean by original.
Yeah, I guess that's right, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was part of a facade renovation,
Yeah,
15, 20 years ago. And I'm sure there was some original material there from when potentially JCPenney's was there. But, it's as far as the original building goes, that it was never there.
yeah, okay, yeah. All right, that's good. Good presentation. Thanks, man.
Okay, I think on the last one, I just have a real quick question. So Bill, go back to sort of the front, and you don't have like a plan. Like last time you were here when we did the courtesy review, you talked about moving it all out. So basically you're moving it out to moving more stuff out to where this in the upper right, you've got number 2 there, that line, or is it coming out farther into the sidewalk?
It's going to the property line. So, like you see this on the northwest corner photograph,
Right.
where there's that gray.
Mm-hmm.
That's that gray to the black is where the property line is, and that's
Oh.
where we're going to.
So basically it is where that number 1 and 2, that the right-hand part of that northwest corner photo, it'll be out to that. Okay, that's all I have. So, okay. If does anyone else have any further questions, or are we ready for a motion? And let me ask one thing before we have a motion. Maria, when is ZRB hearing this case?
Ms. Majeski, members of the PRS, this is going to be reviewed next week on Friday, the 19th.
A week from tomorrow. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so I'm ready for a motion if somebody would like to discuss, or
I'm happy to.
okay, go for it.
All right. On the matter of TD-DEV-0423-00221 /SD-0423-00042 at 103 East Congress. I move to recommend approval of the project as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Carol.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, if not, I'll go ahead and call roll. Savannah,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Joel,
Yes,
and Terry says aye. So it passes unanimously 4-0. Bill, good luck. Good luck with DRB.
Thank you. As always, it's a pleasure working
Okay,
with you
thank-
guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and one thing, Maria, if there's if they have a major disagreement, how will we handle that, Jody? Like if they disagree that we approve as presented?
We say sorry.
Jody will be there DRB meeting, but if the DRB proposes any changes that may require revisions to that you saw today and it's determined that PRS will need to review, then we will need to go back to the PRS. Again, historic preservation supersedes anything else, but it's in their purview also to check on other Rio Nuevo area requirements.
Right, yeah, and in the past, we've done that when there's a major change. Jody, you will alert us to that, right? And be
That is correct.
the eagle eye on that. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Maria. Okay, thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Good luck. Okay, let's move on to item 3C. This is TC-COM-0223-000614 at 261 to 265 North Main Avenue. It's for reconstruction of a front porch. The courtesy review. It's in the El Presidio Historic Preservation Zone. It's a contributing resource. It will be using the rehabilitation standards. Jody, can you give us some background? Is this the one where the porch had to be removed because of a life safety issue?
Correct. So this project, there was an emergency demolition. The UDC allows for the official to check out a property basically and determine if it is a hazard, an imminent hazard. He can declare it as such and allow for an emergency demolition. It was only the porch in this case. So they said that and it was approved. It did go to a courtesy review with the El Presidio neighborhood, the historic preservation zone in early March. Apologies, I am behind on minutes and I don't have those ready. They reviewed it and had a number of comments about the project. I included, for your information, I included both the original review packet demo, which has pictures of the porch as it existed, so you can see how it looked. And then I included also the for the potential new construction of the project. I also want to note that it occurred to me afterwards, but there's an actual extra zero. It should just be 00614 in the project number. My apologies. I got overzealous with my zeros. The property representative, Greg Clark, is here to present.
You said, Mr. Clark, you're the property owner?
I am essentially the construction manager or the one who is working with the property owners to get this issue taken care of.
Okay, let me just note here. Okay, and no one else is on, just yourself for this case, correct?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to know for the minutes.
absolutely.
Go ahead.
So I guess I'd like to share the screen and show you some presentation materials.
Go ahead.
What am I supposed to press?
I think
Share screen. Got it?
the little, yeah, you got the little rectangle with the green rectangle with the arrow upwards.
Is that showing?
Yes. that's
Okay,
fine.
thank you. All right.
And commissioners, remember this is a courtesy review, so we'll just be asking questions and giving feedback. Okay? Go
Yes,
ahead.
please. Courtesy review. I know we need to come back to you. The complicatedness of this whole situation. We're, I think, needing to go to SHPO and all this
Yeah.
other business. So we plan to be back for you, but I'd like to get some of your thoughts.
Okay.
Just to clarify, based on what Jody said, we have not yet torn down the porch, but it is in such a condition that we fear it might need to be done any time. We're trying to keep it as is so that it doesn't go completely bald without the protection of the porch existing, but it's been shored up and secured, and I have people checking it weekly to make sure it, doesn't become a complete catastrophe. So this is the location. It's right on Main Avenue, and you see the site plan. This is an early version, and the red is the porch. It is in El Presidio Historic District. It is registered as a national historic contributor. However, for some odd reason, probably clerical or data entry error, it is not listed as a contributor in the local code, that chapter 902.8.5 or what it is. So the parcel of property is not registered within the city as contributing. This is the district map, and in red is the subject property. It's one of the mansions of Main Street. It's one of the named parcels from back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. This is the development zone. You see Main Avenue in the center. North is pretty much straight up. Franklin Street to the north, Washington Street to the south. Overhead map showing the buildings. You have the Steinfeld Mansion on the lower right of the aerial photograph, and facade features in all these editions. So as far as from the street view, this is the Main Avenue subject property. It's diagonal across from the Cheney House, two addresses down from the Presidio Bed and Breakfast, which is, I think, the Klutschmidt House, something like that. This is the original picture from the nomination form. And as you can see, that at issue are these concrete columns. They were installed in around 1900. There's a small retaining wall around the perimeter of this porch. The original porch built in 1900 extended to the north across this facade also. This gable roof was added also in 1900. So these were originally two described as modest adobe structures. The first one was this here, flat roof with viga ceilings, dirt covering there. And then this was put up with the adobe going up to have a wood shingled gabled roof. So these two structures in 1900, Dr. Perkham Purcell acquired the property, had a big family, added this porch and this giant gabled roof over the previously existing houses. Trying to get further down here. Inventory form that does note the gable roof, that the long porch originally supported by slender posts. We feel that may become critical because we would like to replace the concrete columns with something more from the original porch that was there before it was replaced in 1900. This is the photo from around 2008. This is the porch we're talking about, concrete columns, retaining wall, hip little wraparound thing. And then, so the issue is that this roof up top, well, the whole roof needs to be reshingled. In January, we got contractors to come give bids, and I'm not a superstitious person, but I'm reconsidering after all this. On January 13th, Friday, January 13th, contractor got up, was measuring, stepped onto this porch roof, and it essentially collapsed, gave way underneath him. He had his harness on and was able to jump back onto the main roof of the building, but the entire structure began to give way. And that is because it's, as we'll see, this porch is not attached to the building. The weight of these concrete columns apparently gave some substance to, you know, this lean-to construction method. These, you can see some of the shoring we originally did in January. Same here. And then now we're coming to, so as you can see, the porch is just canting out into the yard, and it's falling away from the building, as you can see up there. Now, these are details, and this goes to essentially after the collapse or the drop, we spent a week to two getting people to look at it, and it was essentially deemed that this can't be repaired. The construction techniques are too funky, too unsafe, can't be repaired. You see this beam here above the column. It's not a beam, it's a hollow structure made out of 1x. And then there, if you see it, this interior feature, it shows a 2x4 nailed up to the top of this 1x12, and that's essentially what's holding everything. Modern construction folks tell me can't keep it, can't repair it, it needs to be replaced. Also, you'll note the columns, extensive spalling on the bottom and cracking. That's typical of everything that's going on. So we looked at, hey, can we rebuild this? Can we keep it? And engineers just say, you know what? No, thank you. My license is on the line. Don't want to do it. And you see the top up here, these bottom photos show the deviation from the horizontal that this porch has slid down. And in this corner is where the fellow stood on it, and it just dropped there. Same with this. This used to be flat along that line, dropped a good number of inches. More details. Now, here is the main problem, is that this porch is not supported against the building at all, except by these little, what I'd call cripples that are stuck into the adobe. And then there is a line here where you can see where the original, so there is no ledger here. And yet here is where the original, this void here is where the original ledger was on the original building. So there was definitely a beam ledger attached to the adobe, stuccoed underneath and above. And this item is one that remains of a steel, some kind of attachment mechanism. It has a little plate out front and a rod going through that seems to be what held the original porch to the building. But when this porch was constructed in 1900, they just went up and above it and put a few little sticks to hold it up. Again, this goes to, and down here, this is a stick that holds it up on a previous lintel or crown molding that is the exterior window that used to go up much higher than the 1900 renovation changed it all to. So we'll go to the next slide. These, again, this is the condition of the beam boxes that are just falling apart, separating and canting away from the building. That shows daylight coming down from where it began to collapse. Oh, and this is a basic diagram of the existing porch. See, it's stood up by these 6 concrete columns. There's a 16 by 16 square base on the bottom, sitting directly in soil, no footings. So there's 3 here, and then there's 1 behind this, and 1, 2, 3 here. And they're all just leaning outwards away from the building. We tried, just can't be repaired or redone in a safe method. Which brings me to, so then I just wanted to note, in case there's any question about, oh, look, you didn't try enough. Let me go back to my notes on which, well, let's see, no footings. Oh, also the rafters. The rafters are 2x4s. Folks these days say, no, you have to have 2x6 minimum to hold up a roof of this size. It's also, you need to have it attached to the building with ledgers. However, ledgers, I'm told, and I cannot find an engineer who will say that a ledger can be placed against this adobe wall. They're 20-inch thick adobe walls. Engineers say, we can't vouch for the structural integrity of that. You need some posts in the back against the wall. I'm still trying to find an engineer who might allow ledgers against the adobe, but that's another problem that we're facing on getting things rebuilt. So this is, yeah, again, rough diagram of what's happening. And then no footings, rafters are small, beams are inadequate, not really beams. I think those are the main points. Now, we would like to rebuild essentially the same exact porch, same size, same weighting, same measurements and dimensions, but we would like to use, instead of replicating the concrete columns or going with some faux fiberglass wrap, we would like to just simply use 6x6s on 16 by 16 CMU piers. And so that is what this rendering essentially shows. Same wall, same height of the wall, but at the base, brand new footings, brand new concrete slab around the entrances, same spacing of the posts, same slope and pitch of the roof, except that these rafters will be 2x6 instead of 2x4. Same overhanging top or cap to the short wall, but we propose to have, I think this is a height of 32 inches. So 16 by 16 CMU concrete rebar piers, 6 of them in the same locations as the current ones, and then a 6x6 wooden post above. Let's see if we can go to the next. This is the diagram of the floor plan. We've got footing plans and such, but we're essentially would like to use just a modern, efficient method of rebuilding rather than trying to replicate those posts. Now, come into a lot of question because Ms. Brown believes that this 1900 addition to the original buildings, the porch itself could have its own contributing status. And so changing this character would cause this building to be non-contributing anymore. It also seems to me that within the standards, there is talk of it's allowable to go to a previous era. So where a change has occurred, you can go backwards. I would argue that some wooden posts are sort of more in character with the traditional Sonoran weight or size of posts. And then I'll just show you the history of this property, and then I can hopefully get your feedback. Earliest Sanborn map, 1883 and 1886. This is now the southwestern 3 rooms of our current structure. Going up to 1889, a room was added on the back, sleeping porch was added on the back, and a shade structure front porch was added. That's designated in yellow here. By the time you get to 1896, the second building with the steep pitched roof has been added to the north. The original porch remains, sleeping porch remains. You get to the late 1900s, between 1896 and 1901, and it's apparently Dr. Purcell did this work in 1900. Few more additions. A back couple rooms back here, this, which is perhaps a kitchen or bathroom of some sort, and then the wraparound porch. Up to 1909, same thing. Couple buildings were added also. Again, the porch also on the north side, and then by 1919, oh no, what did I do? 1919 here, still more addition in shape. And by 1931, it's been divided up into a 4-plex. So you have 4 dwellings there. The corner taken out of the north east side of that porch at issue. And then now, modern, this whole north side is gone, disappeared somewhere along the way. And then between 1931 and 60s or 70s, some more bedrooms were added in the back. So, and this is the shape of the building now. Transpose that to about here, and that's what we have. Last thing I'll point your attention to is this 1909 map that shows still 2 porches, one here and a larger wraparound here. The X designated shingle roof, solid dot indicates composition roof. So again, my thought is, and El Presidio Neighborhood Association feedback, 3 to 4 members stated that they don't have a problem with slender wood posts. One stated the visual interest of the concrete tapered Tuscan columns is appealing and perhaps has its own historic value. And again, Jody feels that this porch, the 1900 edition with the tapered concrete columns, has its own historic significance, and that would be lost if we just took it away. So I understand that just the feelings of the El Presidio Advisory Board and what they would be comfortable with doesn't have sway over what, the interior standards or SHPO. So I am trying to ask SHPO to give a designation or a judgment on that. What would what would cause it to be lost. We don't want it to be lost. But we just are trying to figure out what method of reconstruction would be allowed for the columns and the attachment to the building that would maintain its contributor status. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, before I ask you, ask what your feedback is, what is the period of significance for this property?
It's 1880s to 1912.
Jody, can you confirm that? Jody?
I would concur with that.
Yeah, okay. So did you want to say something first, Jody?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I did not say that the property would lose its contributing status if the code change. I said that the property would potentially lose its contributing status if the porch was not reconstructed. That's exactly what I said. I said, I also expressed concern that the proposal to not replicate the existing columns was potentially not consistent with the standards. There was no photographic documentation. It does look like Mr. Clark has done some additional research from the courtesy review that we had with El Presidio, but I had recommended look for some historic photos to see, what the columns were. I never said that they had to be replicated in concrete. I did say that it's something maybe to consider putting a 4x4 or 6x6 steel post and then wrap it in a material that could replicate the existing columns, but I didn't say that they had to be concrete. I just wanted to clear for the record.
I apologize if I mischaracterized that, or that I did mischaracterize it. Yeah, I'm trying to convey our concern of what the heck is appropriate. Because also even the fiberglass that's made, I've heard comments even when things are accepted and reviewed, if something comes back, there's comments like, oh, those doors are cheesy. We don't want cheesy fiberglass columns. I know that there's some made that say they have marble dust embedded in them and it gives the feel of concrete, but it seems to me to come up and knock on a hollow fiberglass post is not really, doesn't have integrity. That's just my own opinion, but we'd like to figure out what can be done we want to rebuild the porch. We don't want it to be gone. It's a important part of the structure and the living there. So we just would like to find a way that it can be rebuilt that won't upset its contributor status. So
okay.
Thanks.
Understood. So let us just go forward and ask you some questions. So I want to ask Jody, reconstruction is what we're looking at as opposed to making something that's compatible but is slightly different. What are you, when you said reconstruct earlier, that's one thing.
Sorry, you broke up for me a little bit. So are you asking whether it's a reconstruction or a rehabilitation?
Yes.
I would say it's, for the most part, a reconstruction with the terms of the roof structure and the pony wall that's going around. And then it's rehabilitation potentially in terms of the supports. In previous discussions at El Presidio and now what's being proposed are the 6x6 posts, which are not reconstructions because it's a square post. And then at El Presidio, which I think is still being worked out, is the structural elements, how it attach to the wall of the house or be supported. At El Presidio, there was discussion about a support member that would go down along the wall to basically make this a freestanding porch, so it wouldn't be dependent on the house. Correct?
Okay.
Correct, but we've changed, yes, that is one engineering idea. And another that I've not yet been allowed or done the workup of says, well, you might still be able to put a ledger up top where the porch would sit, you know, on that horizontal ledger up at the 11-foot level.
So
But-
like it's being fleshed out. Basically the structural supports are still being fleshed. So I would say that that's a rehabilitation.
Right, and I wanted to say one other thing, Mr. Clark. It's really important that you talk to people who understand Adobe, not just anyone that thinks they understand Adobe. There are structural engineers that work with Adobe specialists that understand that creative solutions are needed. When you tack on something that's not Adobe, you know, sort of a more European feature onto that surround feature, it's very important and it's doable. That's a consideration. It's a very unusual way of doing things and closing that. So, and anyway, so let's go through some.
And let me
questions.
throw one last thing out there. If absolutely required, it does seem possible to retain the existing columns and put them outside the rebuilding columns as some decorative feature or something. Not we think that's a good idea necessarily, but if it's required for some historical reason.
Let's ask our questions, because we're not designing the project for you. You'll have to work with someone who can present to SHPO for you. You need to work with Jody to come up with a plan. And one other question for Jody. So this is not in the historic preservation zone, this property?
No, it's in the historic preservation zone. It is a contributing property to the El Presidio Historic Preservation Zone. I'm not sure what Ms. was looking at. We do consider this a contributing property.
Okay, very good. And that's why, I mean, SHPO has to, because it's in the tax credit program.
No, it's a commercial property because it's a fourplex.
It's a rental. So
Okay. All right.
they're not eligible.
All right, so let's go ahead, commissioners, with your comments and questions so we can move this along. Who'd like to go first? Carol?
Sure. First of all, in terms of replicating something earlier, if you don't have any photographs, that's not something you want to do or you can do. To be able to put something earlier that you think was there, you know. The other thing is this is going to be completely new. It is not going to be a historic element to the building anymore. So there will be, I don't know how other people feel about and I guess, again, it depends on reconstruction, rehabilitation, whatever, but you want something that's compatible, but maybe distinctive, because this piece is not historic anymore once you replace the whole thing. And so you want the same massing, you want a similar look, but it's not going to be, this porch is not going to be historic anymore. So those, were kind of my comments. And then I guess the other thing is maybe they need to cut down some of those vines, because besides the horrid construction methods that were used initially, it looks like they've let some of the vines and things just kind of erode the property or the porch. And then I'll let other people make some comments.
Okay, who would like to go next?
I'll go next, if you don't mind. This is Joel. I didn't hear this in the presentation, and maybe I just missed it. Has there been any consideration of just using the old concrete columns? I mean, could they be cleared of the debris or something and be used as the new columns?
They look pretty trash. There's some of them that look pretty spalled at the base.
Yeah, that's what I was,
Pictures he shown.
that's what I was told again, that it's an engineering question. Engineers don't want to vouch for it. There's no method of, other than sending it to a lab in Phoenix where it's hydraulically compressed and tested for structural something, that it just can't be done. Also, any kind of attachment. So the item needs footings, and then attaching these concrete columns to the footings would require drilling and epoxy doweling with all thread or something. And it's feared that the columns would just crack apart with drilling into it. Also, a thing I didn't mention is that the beam boxes that hold it up, they are attached to the concrete columns only with 2 nails in each column through a 1x8 that's the bottom of that beam box into the concrete. So yes, we asked about that, and we're told that engineers aren't interested in vouching for the integrity of those columns.
No, fair enough. It's just the other question I have has been partially answered. I think we're still solving the problem of how to connect it to the house, if that's part of the solution. Are there any? Can you expand on that answer, or have you told us everything you know about that?
It's been advised to me by 3 different engineers that it has to be a self-sustaining, solid, essentially its own structure that would not be leaning on or putting weight upon the adobe. However, it's been recommended to me, Ron Schneider, that I should talk to him because he might have some ideas and allow for a ledger to be placed up above it. But if a ledger cannot be attached to the adobe walls, then it has to have essentially 6 posts along the back that would be up against the structure vertically, and then the high end of the porch would sit upon those.
Yeah, and I guess my comment is, I don't think we want to ask anything that's impossible to do. And obviously, the homeowner has considerations of costs and things like that. But I guess my comment is we're going to have to review this according to the standards that we use. Sorry, I'll check out with that. There you go.
Okay. So anyone else have comments? Savannah?
Yeah, I'll go next.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for the presentation and the thoroughness of your study and your interest in doing the research, doing the kind of background data collection so that you're making the right choice moving forward. I really appreciate that. Let's see. The columns to me, based on the period of significance and the sequence of the building additions over time, that they would be considered a character defining feature. And I would, if this is indeed considered a reconstruction, want to see them reconstructed. And I agree that that doesn't mean that they have to be concrete. I personally have done that before with other materials, steel wrapped in masonry, wrapped in other finish systems to get to that look. Because it's a, like I said, a pretty character defining feature. It's a very prominent kind of part of the project, part of the structure, especially on that street facade. I would, of course, like Carol, be happy and willing to consider going back to the previous era if there was very convincing documentation of what that looked like, and if it was kind of followed through as a whole, and not just here and there on but kind of a holistic approach to rolling it back to the previous era. So in terms of where that previous porch was, its extents, you know, how its full configuration. If there's some documentation on that, I think that would be a very compelling reason to roll it back and reconstruct it in that form. So if you can find that, I think that would be really interesting. But if not, and if this is considered a reconstruction, I feel like I'd want to see it, you know, matched to how it is now, as closely as possible. You talked about basically recreating the full extent of the you know, the dimensions of the porch, putting the columns back in the original locations, even the base site walls matching, you know, the profile and the height, but in this other material, which again, I think is perfectly fine, but kind of paying attention to all those dimensions and recreating them. Sorry. What else do I want to say? The structural ledger, I work in Adobe as well, and I can pass on some contacts for structural engineers that I've worked with on Adobe structures. On the most recent project where I attached to Adobe a new ledger, actually it was a new floor, was like a through bolt type system. So you would need access to the other side of the wall and kind of basically sandwich in the ledger. So I don't know what kind of access you have to the other side of the Adobe wall to make that connection, but that could be something to look at to basically rely on the kind of gravity condition of the wall to provide that top side support.
We absolutely have that, and that was the first intention of suggesting to engineers, because there is that gabled roof. It peaks up at 27 feet, and the porch is at 11. So there's plenty of room, and there was a parapet above the Viga and dirt roof. So there's 4 feet inside there, 20-inch thick walls. So there is access, and yes, I'd love somehow maybe if you could get to Jody, a list or handful or a name, some engineers. I'd
have a name or two.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, how they used to fasten was they'd build in like wood blocking or nailers into the Adobe where they knew there were attachments going to come through. But if it came in later and they didn't plan for that, another thing is like kind of carving out the Adobe and placing that wood, but I think that's a little more invasive. So that's why I've used the sandwich approach in the past. It seems less invasive. If you can get the kind of the lateral requirements that the structural engineers seem to desire. What else? I think that was it. Oh, one of my questions about I'm pretty convinced that it needs to be replaced, right? Everything just looks in very poor condition and then not salvageable, which is perfectly fine. But I was curious about the columns. Did they look to me to be stuccoed over? Is that the case, or is it just?
Yes, it does look like it. I don't know whether it's hard to tell whether it's original, but underneath that stucco, there is a fairly porous, kind of a rubble concrete. It's the aggregate is various. It almost looks like it was made from what was in the yard. There seems to be large chunks of caliche in some of it, larger rock, and then it's an odd sort of thing. And it looks also like it was formed out of maybe 1x3s or something, because there is sort of underneath the stucco, there is an angularity as if it was formed with straight wooden members.
Interesting. Custom site cast columns.
Yeah, very interesting. Was that all you had, Savannah?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if that was helpful. No. I mean, I think they're pretty special, I guess, and I would miss not saying that was something somewhere very as close as possible to their design. That's all.
Okay.
So, Carol or Joel, do you have anything else?
No, thank you, Savannah. Those were great comments too. Yeah, thanks.
Carol, how about you? You
I was
good?
gonna ask about if they're going to do the reconstruction and have it be to 1900, are you going to try to replace the porch all the way around or just do it as it is currently?
We don't have desire to go all the way around.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So Jody, I wanted to ask you, will you be working with Mr. Clark on, or will you be meeting with him in SHPO, or how will you do this?
So SHPO isn't involved. They're deferring to us. Mr. Clark called SHPO with some questions. I spoke to Ariana Urban about it. She gave a call. They're deferring to us on this. matter.
Well, then, so will you work with him on the design of his plans?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Will you help him with, advise him as he works on the design of his plans before he comes back to us, taking into consideration these matters?
Yeah, I mean, he is currently working. I'm happy to forward the information that Savannah wants to share to Mr. Clark. He is working with an architect and an engineer, or that's what he's conveyed. So as it moves through the process, he'll be working with us. We've corresponded quite a bit and talked quite a bit on the project.
Okay, and I think the key things to remember are that, there has to be some differentiation, right? And we'd really like to see him have documentation to go back to those earlier columns. If there is
Correct.
such, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have spent many an afternoon in the photo archive at the Historic Society, but so far found nothing of this exact building. So based on that, is it my understanding then that Jody, you will be the one determining what design maintains contributor status or not?
The El Presidio Historic Preservation Advisory Board and the Plans Review Subcommittee, which this one is, are advisory to the director. I am also advisory to the director in providing information. The director is ultimately the one who will issue the decision letter. So as you are moving along, there's been direction given from both boards. You will design, I can answer questions and provide direction, but ultimately you will present the plans that you want to present and they will make a recommendation. And both of those recommendations will go to the director and he will issue the decision. So at this point, you've gotten some information from El Presidio, you've got information from PRS on their recommendations, which differ somewhat. I will add that the majority of the conversation that was done at El Presidio was not with the architects on the board. And they were providing their preferences. There was little from the architects.
Yes, I am aware of that. I'm just curious, this whole contributor status situation, it does seem that is an important consideration, that this not lose or something is not done that causes it to become a non-contributor. So it does seem that, that tome of the Department of Interior standards, I understand you guys probably went to school for this, but it's hard for folks to understand and parse out exactly which thing is done in which condition and which situation. And so I'd love to just get a ruling. Okay, what must happen? but
Well, we
it
can't-
seems
we
nobody's
can't-
really willing.
We can't design your project, but if you have a good architect who does historic architecture, they can help you in the character defining features. If you have questions about those, I'm sure Jody would answer them. I mean, we've already said that, the columns, the pitch, you're pretty much just talking about reconstructing it as is, except maybe with the variation in the columns. If you don't have exact evidence that shows, definite evidence that shows that those smaller posts were used, then I think you have to go with, the reconstructing the posts that it has currently, and then get somebody who knows Adobe and a structural engineer that'll work with you. And Savannah's got some names to talk about how to join them, and then think about how it's slightly different, and so, you'll have a chance to come back to both boards and have feedback from Jody as well. So I think, you're not trying to do something crazy. You're basically trying to reconstruct it. So I think that you're not going to have that much trouble. It's just, you've got two critical areas like the joining of the Adobe to the structure, to the roof structure, and those posts. And pretty much, I mean, would the rest of you agree that this isn't that difficult if you're going to reconstruct, if you have people that know what they're doing and help you with plans?
Yes, and my concern is that that's what I want. I want the design professionals to deal with best practices and creating a good solution. And if that isn't mimicking or replicating a concrete tapered column, then, because it's required to keep historic contributing status, I personally would prefer to not mimic this concrete column and just use some posts. But I'm having trouble finding out who makes this determination of, yes, you can use some wooden posts, or no, it is required to use and replicate that feature of the concrete columns.
We've already said, if you can't find evidence, then
You cannot, so far.
Right. Our advice is to replicate. Isn't that what the rest of us said? Our advice. PRS members, isn't that what we said?
Yes, I think that was
That's-
it. Yeah, because there isn't any photographic or any kind of documentation of an earlier post that you can use.
Right.
Okay, but replicate, not mimic, or what's that distinction? Would you say the top shape needs to be a little different, or the,
No, replicate means replicate. Mimic means sort of,
We're saying replicate.
yeah, we're
Um,
saying
but
an exact copy?
but
But you
doesn't
don't have to use-
necessarily have to rely on the same material. It doesn't have to be concrete.
Yes. Correct.
And Savannah had some suggestions. She said she had done it on her projects as
Oh,
well.
sure. Yes, I understand that. And what an advice or a recommendation is different from a determination. And so I'm just trying to understand, okay, I'll try my best, I'll do something, but in fact, when I come back after doing all the work, you may just say, I'm sorry, we determine it must be a replication. So I don't want to waste.
We've already said it needs to be a replication unless you have solid evidence of those other posts. And the thing is, we give advice. So does you'll have to go to the El Presidio Historic Zone Advisory Board first. Then you come to us. We listen to what they say, but we make our own recommendation. And then it goes to the director. Sometimes these things take a revisit. But I think, if you follow what we've said, essentially replicate with some discerning features to make it look slightly, that it's not, that it's got some slight differences. And like I said, Jody can help you think about those. We can help you think about those. A clever historic architect can help you think about those. And, I think you'll be fine. I mean, this process is not, there's no black and white necessarily. But we're not trying to string you along. We've given you, I think, some good advice.
Understood. Okay, well, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Terry, maybe one way to say it is we're giving advice that the porches are going to be put on needs to look like the old one. But beyond that, we're not saying anything. It doesn't have to be the same materials, or, it could be wood turnings, or, fiberglass, but it's just got to look like the old one, but it doesn't have to replicate the old one, I don't know. It's hard. It is. I understand this confusion. I mean, I do. But we're in good faith. We're going to try to help you along with this. We're not going to, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and because it's the front of the house, it's so important. It is a character defining thing, and properties have been delisted for changes to the front porches. So we're very concerned. It's not about what we like necessarily. It's about what we think is needed to keep the property a contributor. That's our job, really.
No, I mean, that's what I needed to hear, because it's been up to now sort of this amorphous mystery to me of, is that character defining and must it be replicated? So I'm glad to, get this feedback. So thank you very much.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you and good luck. And I'm sure we will see your project when it's ready to go.
All right. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Clark.
All right.
Okay. Let's move on to item 4, which is Task Force on Inclusivity Report Recommendations. 4A is discussion on best practices for naming of city and county-owned physical assets. I don't have a report, but I really would like to get this wrapped up in the next few months. So Carol, you and I, and hopefully he will still help us out taking a look at it too before we bring it back to PRS. Okay, item 5 is current issues for information discussion. 5A is minor reviews. And Michael, you joined us earlier, so do you have an update for us?
Yes, Madam Chair. We did 2 minor reviews inside this week at 136 West Simpson, one for a solar panel installation, which was a straightforward review, and the other one for a fence and 2 gates around a pool at the same property.
Fence and 2 gates around a pool?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And then I have 4 pending minor reviews, 3 of them in Amory Park and 1 of them in West University, that I'm asking for volunteers so we can get that done inside next week.
So you said 2 in Armory Park?
3 in Amory Park and 1 in West University.
Okay, do we
Michael, I'll do this is Joel. I'll do the one in West University, certainly.
Okay, thank you, Joel.
Carol or Savannah, can you help with the ones, or does Jan help you out with some or not necessarily? Michael, or is she out of town?
Jen is out of town, so I don't think she'll be able to be of any help. She's out of town.
Actually, next week I can do them. I can do those too if we're in a jam. That's fine. I'll do them.
Okay.
So just send me the email. I'll get to them.
Okay, and if you can schedule those with Joel, that's great, and I can be a backup if you need me. But just let me know what times, and I'll say if I'm available at those times if you need a backup.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay,
Madam
does
Chair.
that
Thank
work?
you, Jude. Thank you. That works.
Okay, great. Okay, item 5B is appeals. Do we have any appeals?
No, we do not have any at this point in time.
Okay, 5C, zoning violations.
We have 2 active cases that Rick is working on them. The one is at 327 East 13th Street for a wall. This is a pending wall that has been in the process for a long time. So the applicant is not forthcoming, and so we asked Rick to activate. And so I'm looking at bringing the applicant back to Amory Park and the plans review. He is also working on another violation at 125 East 16th Street. That is an addition in the back of that property, which work has been done on it with no historic review approval process. So Reed is talking with the property owner. So those are the two violations that we have active right now that should be coming your way pretty soon.
Okay. Thank you. Item 5D is review process issues.
I don't have any contribution on that item, Madam Chair.
Okay, does anyone else? Okay, none. Okay, item 6 is summary of public comments. Did we have any received by the deadline?
We did not receive any publics.
Okay. Item 7 is future agenda items. Jody, what do you have for us?
We will be having at least one item, which is in the downtown National Register District at 33 South 6th Avenue. They're doing some storefront improvements, the storefront TI
So 33 South 6th
Avenue,
Avenue.
correct.
Okay. So would we have any recusals if we had that case? Jody?
Savannah says no.
I don't
No, okay, I
think
wasn't
so.
watching.
She's the one that I have to look for.
Yeah. No, I mean, and so just in terms of the quorum, does everyone think they can make the next meeting on May 25th?
I will not be present.
You will not be
I'll
present?
try.
It
Okay,
works
But
for me.
everyone else can? Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Terry, I think I can. There might be well, I'm not totally sure because I have something else that the date is still kind of floating around, but hopefully I'll be here on the 25th.
Okay, and I was just gonna mention, when Jody sends out, she's very faithful about sending out the agenda and the case materials. Please respond to her because she asked. I mean, I don't mind following up at the end at the 11th hour, but it just takes a little response. Yes, I'm coming. You know, if you could do that, and you know, because now we're down to 5. Hopefully Ricky will be able to come back. I think we can make it for a while. We'll figure out. Jody, you're okay with it right now if we can make it work?
Yeah, we can make this work. It should be fine. I've been dealing with Barrio Historico for months now, and they only have 4 members, so
Yeah. Well,
we're
yeah,
long.
no, but I appreciate everyone's faithfulness, and we'll try to make this work. So thanks, everyone. Jody, if you get me if you get me the recording, you know that basically the thing that has to go to DRB, you know, we should have it in by next week, by Friday, but it's basically just approved as presented, right?
Yeah, it's proved as presented.
Yeah, so I mean, if you had to go and say that, you could say it. But
Yeah.
I will try to get this to you guys. It's just been a really difficult several weeks for me. And so it's harder. And these are going to be hard because I have to listen to all the courtesy review stuff, you know, to make it helpful. So, okay, well, we will adjourn then at 2:55 p.m. And thanks everyone for your time. Okay.
Thank you.
Take
Thanks.
care, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.
I think